Hi, my name is Connor Arden.
My name is Dylan Carrion, and today we are going to present our proposal for Under Armour and how we can help them make changes for them to better succeed for their company in the future. Now, we'd like to begin just to give an overview of the company. As we've been learning all semester, Under Armour has been one of the leading companies in the sports apparel marketplace. The company was started by Kevin Plank in 1996. He was a University of Maryland football player who found it very difficult to go through practices with the cotton material they were wearing under their equipment. He believed that there was a better solution to help athletes counteract the sweat that they were experiencing through high performance sports. Uh, so Kevin Plank created a clothing specifically made for athletes that sweat a lot during their athletic performances or events. Uh, this new innovation helped spark his company Under Armour, and he took a grassroots approach to market the product. He would go and give samples to some of his former teammates who were playing in the NFL at the time, and most of the players grew to love it. He was going through many requests to get shirts or other equipment, and through this, his company began to explode. Eventually, Under Armour became one of the leaders in the sports apparel market throughout the years, signing exclusive partnerships with colleges and some athletes as well. In 2014, the company was ranked second only to Nike in sales in the market. Under Armour also took a specific approach in taking strong risks with their athletic endorsements. Some of the athletes that are sponsored by the company include Steph Curry, Cam Newton, and Jordan Spieth. Now, as Under Armour was climbing, they did experience several challenges that are really damaging the company today. Since 2016, Under Armour has been seeing a slow decrease in their sales and revenue. Since their certain spike in the early 2000s and early 2010s, Under Armour has been seeing a decline in their sales and the people they are targeting for their company. They have struggled to make a huge technological development that they first started with their company. One example was their fitness health box, which they marketed to be a new era for fitness for people, not just athletes, but for regular amateurs as well. However, it did not see the sales and growth that the company had projected. The company is also failing a current identity crisis. The younger market has been attracted to more of a fashion-forward look when it comes to sports apparel. Athleisure has become the new identity for companies like Nike and Adidas, who are targeting this younger market and growing their sales, while Under Armour has fallen behind and has continued to be seen as a company that really just targets apparel for the older market. Under Armour also has a challenge of lacking a strong presence in a certain sport. For example, when people think about football and the sport and what certain brand is associated with it, they think Nike, whether it's high school football, college football, the NFL, even in the little leagues nowadays, Nike is the main brand behind the sport. And Under Armour really doesn't have a presence in any of the four major sports in North America and not really any sport in the entire world. The company does need to return to its promising beginnings where Kevin Plank really demonstrated a willing, hard presence with the company. And with so much powerful athletic endorsements, Under Armour has significantly lost interest in people because they're not using their sports presence as great as they should be. Just a little further analysis of Under Armour failing in their sales. This chart from Statista shows the leading athletic apparel, accessories, and footwear companies in the world in 2018, and the sales is by millions of the US dollars. As you can see on this chart, Nike and Adidas are well above the sales that Under Armour has achieved in this current year. Even Puma is exceeding Under Armour currently. And it's just something that a great company like Under Armour with so many great assets should not be falling that well behind these other companies. And another look at two other graphs, just showing the decrease in sales over year for the company, and they're just lack of revenue growth in the past years as well. and it's not a trend that the company does want to be continuing with in the future.
So now diving into the recommendations for how Under Armour can potentially change their lack of sales and their lack of revenue growth, and potentially how they can continue to try and grow for the future. So Under Armour needs to develop what we're going to call a plan for success. This plan is going to be implemented in Under Armour for over the course of the next 5 years, and it's going to try and get Under Armour back on track and in competition with Nike and Adidas again. So there's going to be 3 main points to this plan for success, and we're going to dive more into how they're going to be implemented in a little bit. But first off, the three steps to this plan for success are, first off, their use of their star athletes. They need to have a bigger presence as brand ambassadors. Right now, currently, some of Under Armour's brand ambassadors are players such as Bryce Harper and Steph Curry, some huge names across baseball and basketball that could be taking more of a forefront than they currently are in the company to help kind of grow the marketability of the company. Secondly, would be to establish an apparel identity. Obviously, this is something that you would assume that Under Armour's already done, considering they've been a company for quite some time now, and they solely make apparel. So one might ask, how have they not established an apparel identity? So it's not the fact that they haven't established one. It's the fact that the one that they established is now failing, and they need to kind of rework it and come up with a new apparel identity to continue to grow in the future. Times have changed since when they first became a company, and they need to change their identity to continue to grow with the times. So this will probably focus towards more performance apparel, as we'll get into later in the implementation stage. And the last step is to dominate a specific sport. As Dylan already mentioned, Nike dominates football. And one of the potential places for Under Armour to potentially dominate would be baseball. And I'll get into why in a little bit. So furthering on these recommendations for change, there are 2 particular strategies and tactics that I think, marketing-wise, that Under Armour needs to go after in order to maximize the amount of growth that they can have in the future. So first off, they need to start targeting young adults. As Dylan already mentioned, and I'll talk about further in a little bit, Under Armour has fallen way behind within teenagers. Teenagers have started to enjoy more fashion-forward apparel that Under Armour has not been known for. This means that Under Armour is way behind the curve with teenagers, and so if they now try to start targeting teenagers, they're not going to be able to get those teenagers to not follow Nike and Adidas. They've already basically lost those people. So they need to target a different group. They need to differentiate themselves from Nike and Adidas. And doing that, they need to target young adults, a place that Nike and Adidas have not focused on as much as Nike and Adidas have been focusing on teenagers. So focusing on young adults will allow them to differentiate themselves from the competition rather than continually try and keep up with Nike and Adidas. If they can differentiate themselves enough and create a different niche for themselves than continually going after the same niche as Nike and Adidas, they will continue to grow and have more revenue continually coming in. Lastly, another thing to do is to establish a strong market in the United States instead of looking to grow globally. Global expansion is something that Nike and Adidas have been pretty strong at, especially within Europe and Asia markets. However, Under Armour should try and solidify themselves in the United States and find a strong market here before they try and spread themselves too thin too quickly. So what marketing tactics can they use to kind of establish this strategy? So first off, they need to start focusing on social media. Social media has become a huge presence in culture nowadays, and everything's more social media driven. They need to have social media ambassadors such as Bryce Harper, Steph Curry. They need to start posting on social media, and they need to really up their social media marketing and really make that a full force to kind of try and gather as much of a audience as they can. On top of that, they need to really tone in and focus on advertisements and commercials. That'll kind of be complementary to social media. And then lastly, virtual reality is huge. So if they can have certain events and pop-up events at different conferences or different malls around the United States that utilize virtual reality with some of their products, such as put on these virtual reality glasses and you can see Bryce Harper wearing the newest apparel and stuff like that, would really be a great way to kind of market the new apparel in a unique way that will be exciting for young people to kind of experience. So now getting into implementing each one of these 3 stages. So the first step of the plan for success is to use star athletes as bigger brand ambassadors. So as I already stated, Steph Curry, Bryce Harper, Tom Brady, Jordan Spieth are some of the biggest athletes in their sport. These are some clients that Under Armour has that most people don't know that they have because Under Armour has not used them to their full potential. As you can see, Steph Curry has been the face of Under Armour for the past few years, and that has led to Tom Brady, Bryce Harper, and other Under Armour clients kind of flying underneath the radar. So they need to further develop and integrate their other big brand ambassadors so that they don't just become known as another basketball shoe. Basketball shoe and the basketball market in general is absolutely huge. And so the fact that Steph Curry has kind of become the face of Under Armour over the past few years, it leads them to kind of fall in the category where they're just another basketball shoe and that's all the apparel that they make. And that's something that's part of what has led to the demise of Under Armour is that they're falling into this category of just being another basketball shoe. And they need to kind of differentiate themselves from that category. So as I was already saying, brand ambassadors such as Bryce Harper could potentially be perfect to highlight. It's his first year at his new team in Philadelphia. He just signed a record-breaking contract in the MLB, and he's currently one of the best players in the MLB. 3 things that are absolutely huge in a market that he could potentially really exploit. So Under Armour needs to ensure that they don't get stuck in this rut of just having one brand ambassador be the face of the entire company, especially in a sport that is basketball, where it's so dominated by sports apparel in general. There's so many different brands and there's so many different basketball shoes out there that Under Armour needs to differentiate themselves from just being a basketball brand and just being something such as Steph Curry. So now this goes into establishing their identity. So Under Armour has lost, as I was already saying earlier, they have lost interest across teenagers across the United States. This is because teenagers have been looking forward to a more fashion-forward apparel, which Nike and Adidas have excelled in. So this has led to a decrease in teenagers' interest in Under Armour, but it's actually opened up a niche for Under Armour to take advantage of. And that is to target young adults, as I already said, in their mid-20s, and Under Armour can create exciting state-of-the-art performance wear and performance apparel. Instead of focusing on fashion-forward apparel, they can look to potentially grow into something similar to Lululemon, where they have very well-performing performance wear, but on a higher scale than Lululemon and at a lower cost. So have more product than Lululemon is more of a niche brand, so they can have higher scale product and be larger than Lululemon, but at a lower cost than Lululemon as well. So more affordable and more people can potentially buy it. But that way they differentiate themselves from Nike and Adidas, but also differentiate themselves from Lululemon by being cheaper. And lastly, they need to dominate a specific sport. As I already said, they've kind of been trying to focus on basketball, but I don't think it's working because there's too many brands that are strong in basketball. So Nike currently dominates the football market. So that kind of throws football out as an option. And as I already said, basketball is inundated by too many different kinds of basketball shoes, and their marketing is flooded and overcrowded. This is something that if Under Armour tries to focus on basketball, they will get lost in the crowd and they will not be able to differentiate themselves in any way. So this leaves baseball as the potential sport for Under Armour to absolutely dominate. There are a few reasons for this. As I've already mentioned a few times, the Bryce Harper brand ambassadorship is something that is absolutely huge. The fact that they were able to get Bryce Harper as a brand ambassador is something they should capitalize on. This is a huge name across baseball currently and could potentially bring them to the next level as a brand. So the next step is to bring on smaller brand ambassadors around baseball that can supplement Bryce Harper in the baseball community. Players that are smaller but are up and coming and could potentially take the widespread community of baseball to the next level. And if they target their marketing efforts and branding to more of a baseball audience, it will allow them to focus on the Bryce Harpers and the smaller brand ambassadors that could potentially grow this new market that there's not currently a brand dominating. One thing to note, though, this does not mean to get rid of the brand ambassadors currently across other sports, such as Steph Curry and Tom Brady. These are huge names to have, and there's not something that you just do away with. There's still potential and a lot of room to have these brand ambassadors continue to grow the brand at a very good rate. It's just Under Armour has gotten lost in their current identity, and they need to re-identify themselves within a specific sport. But Steph Curry should still be making basketball shoes. He's one of the best players in the NBA, and his shoes are still going to sell. Regardless of however many other basketball shoes are out there, Steph Curry's always going to have a top-selling shoe, and this is something that Under Armour should still focus on. On top of that, Tom Brady is one of the best NFL quarterbacks of all time. This is something that Under Armour needs to take advantage of. Even though Nike dominates football so strongly, Tom Brady is absolutely such a huge person on and off the field. This is something that Under Armour needs to take advantage of. So in closing, Under Armour needs to go back to its roots and rediscover itself. They started off really strong, but as Nike and Adidas have adjusted to the addition of Under Armour in the market, they have continued to excel. Now it is Under Armour's time to continue to start adjusting to their marketing targets as well. So Nike and Adidas, when Under Armour came into the fold, Nike and Adidas adjusted to Under Armour, and they made sure that they didn't let Under Armour take any of their potential exposure, and they adjusted to the addition of Under Armour, and they continue to grow as a company and increase their revenue. So now that they've done that and they've adjusted to the addition of Under Armour, that's why Under Armour has started to decrease their sales. So it's time for Under Armour to react to the adjustment of Nike and Adidas and figure out where their niche is going to be and adjust accordingly. As I've already stated a few times, and Dylan touched on a little bit as well, teenagers have lost interest in Under Armour and have been appealed to the more fashion-forward look of Nike and Adidas. So this means that Under Armour now needs to focus on a different group of people. So that's going to be the young adults between mid-20s, 20s to 30s, that could potentially be the new face of Under Armour. If Under Armour can follow this 3-step plan for success, then they will be able to start recovering from their decline in sales over the past few years. So once again, this 3-step plan for success is to use their star athletes as bigger brand ambassadors. And brand ambassadors such as Steph Curry, Tom Brady, Bryce Harper, these are all huge names across their respective sports. And if they can implement them further in their brand as a whole, they'll be able to grow as a company. They need to establish an apparel identity across the United States so that people, when they see Under Armour, they know exactly what that brand is. It's not just another basketball shoe company. It's not just falling behind Nike and Adidas in competition. They have their own niche and they have their own market that they're differentiated from everyone else. And lastly, they need to dominate a specific sport, and that sport is baseball. There's too much opportunity within baseball on the fact that they have Bryce Harper as a brand ambassador to not take advantage of it. Thank you for listening today. Dylan and I are very excited to be able to present this to you, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation.